Okay, so the different types of data collections are ordinal, nominal, continuous, and discrete. Ordinal is more informative, relative, and numerical. Numbers allocated do have a meaning, and also no equal distance between the places. Categories and numbers organized into an order, so like a table, stuff like that. An example would be finishing places in a gymnastic competition, so like 1 to 10. Nominal is less informative. Data put in categories, mutually exclusive attributes only named. An example would be eye color, be brown or blue eyes, or type of gymnastic competition, so like floor work, beam or vault. Continuous is two types, so ratio and interval. Ratio is ranking order, equal intervals, and 0 is a relevant number. Example would be weight or height of gymnast. Interval is rank ordering, and equal intervals. It can be negative numbers, so an example would be temperature. Discrete is only within two categories, hence why it's called discrete. Objective data, only one or the other, so it can only be one category or the other. Example would be a gymnast above 6 foot or below 6 foot, it can only be one or the other, or the gender of a gymnast, male or female. What is qualitative data? Qualitative data is rich, detailed information. So it's information that is like worded and very long, and it's not just short and brief. You're able to ask questions on the detail of qualitative data and expand on answers from questions you get. There are two types of qualitative data, so it can be done through an interview or an observation. An interview is an oral questioning that occurs between an interviewer and a respondent, and an observation is reviewing the subject's behaviour and action, so actually watching them when they're doing a certain activity you've set them to do. Okay, so there's 4 types of interviews. So there's an unstructured interview, which is like one main topic or question, and then it's free-flowing and expansive on the point, so you have one main point and then you expand on from that, freestyling it. An advantage of this would be it's more informal and relaxed for the participant. It can be flexible and follow up, so you're able to gain more information if you find any questions you want. And the disadvantage is it takes more time as you're going through a lot more, and you have to come up with more questions. And it's less generalizable, as the questions you may follow up on and ask can only relate to the answers that are given. Structured interviews set guidelines and questions to follow. There are no expanding points. Answer exactly what you want, so you can't expand on the questions you've set. And the advantage of this is simpler analysis, and you focus on a specific topic. However, the disadvantage is you get less information because you can't follow up because it's structured, and validity issues in the formality of the situation. So the participant may feel they have to give a certain answer to appease the researcher because it's such a formal thing. Then there's semi-structured, so there's some set of questions, but there's allowance for expanding on answers and questions. So it's a bit of both with the unstructured and structured. Advantage of this is good guidelines and structures for the questions. You're able to expand and develop on the questions as well. However, disadvantage maybe is time consuming, and you maybe get off track of the structured questions if you're too busy expanding on the points. Focus groups is group-based interviews, so group discussion between the groups. So you set a question and the group discusses it. It tends to be semi-structured, so you have one main point and then you expand on that. Advantage would be you gain multiple opinions and you observe the group dynamics and the social customs. Disadvantage would be a lot of things to analyse, may not be affected by may be affected by social influences, so people may not give their actual opinion because they don't want to go against the group, and it's a lot to analyse because you have to watch a group of people instead of just one people. But the good thing is multiple opinions, you can get different types of data from that. And observing the dynamics of the group can help you find out more about people as a person. Okay, moving on to observation. So, type of analysis that looks at respondents' behaviour, tone and body, so it's not actually what they answer, it's like how they answer and how they act. Observed by cameras or in videos, so it could be done by recording someone and then watching it back, or just watching people. Especially it'll be more recorded in a focus group, so you can watch back and look at more stuff. There's never normally any deliberate manipulation of variables, so you're just watching as if you're not there, you're not trying to influence or change anything. Ways of doing it is a checklist, you can video it, a diary entry, field notes of the researcher, or pictures. These can all be used together to create the best research. Types of participant observation is complete participation, where fully takes part and doesn't reveal the role. Complete observer, so doesn't take part in an experiment and doesn't reveal the role, so you're just observing, you're not in taking part in anything. Observer as a participant, so observes but doesn't reveal the role, so you're observing in secret. And participant as a observer, so he actually reveals the role. So reliability is difficult to replicate. There's also confounding variables, and then there's the inter-researcher reliability, so the actual researcher involved. If you have good coding, that also means there will be better reliability. So also with validity, so if the participant knows, then there's low validity because they feel like they know they're being watched. And if the observer is the researcher, then there's also low validity because they will probably want to be looking for the answers that they want. Advantages of this: observed behaviour is not seen in an interview. So you'll be able to look at more stuff instead of having to write down your the answer they're giving. You can also gain detailed notes as you're observing everything about how they're answering, and it has a real life application because you can apply it to how they actually act as a person. Disadvantage is the Hawthorne effect, so this is acting how they want to act to appease the researcher. It could be costing and time consuming as you need all the equipment, and also it takes time to analyze everyone. There's an effect of realism in a lab, so if you're doing it in a lab, this might affect how people actually act and affect their observing. Next is quantitative observation data, so this looks at behaviors and actions and emotions in terms of quantitative, so like tally actions, so you like tally certain types of behaviors. So this would be, an example would be tallying basketball actions in a game, so like a layup or a turnover or something like that. You've got to consider the structure, how you record it, and recording it, and how, and also how it's made, recorded, and also coded.